People who have been catfished, how did you catch on that you were being lied to? In my sophomore year of college, my friend Carrie, male, 19, met a girl named Kelly in a chat room. They talked a lot, and got close. One day, Kelly revealed that her boyfriend beat her up and broke her jaw. Carrie drove to a city a few hours away to rescue her, and learned that Kelly was really Kenny. Kenny tortured Carrie into giving up all his passwords, and then murdered him and left his corpse in a field. Then Kenny impersonated Carrie online for several days in an attempt to cover his tracks. He did a bad job, and got caught, and killed himself in jail before trial. I realize how this sounds with all the names being K_Y, but it's a true story. You can Google it. It really messed me up for a while. My ex-girlfriend tried catfishing me to test me. It took me about 30 seconds of looking through the profile before I realized that the name was her name backwards. The craziest thing is that she really thought it would work. That girl was bonkers. Edit, Ayla. What was the backwards name? Edit, I shouldn't have asked. Kibert Shella. About 6 years ago I found out my brother was a catfish. He had been catfishing this young man in the UK whilst being in America. He had fake pictures, a fake name but his real phone number. The guy being catfished, we'll call him Lenny, would repeatedly call my brother and leave messages on our house phone. My brother and Lenny often sent each other packages of sweets. Lenny made the decision to come to America to visit, since he's never been. My brother agreed. On the day Lenny arrived in Texas, my brother told him the truth, but never actually met up with Lenny. Lenny tried all week trying to convince my brother to meet him, telling him he just wanted to know who he really was. My brother never showed. Lenny called religiously every day for about a month trying to get my brother back. I think he really loved him. After that I never heard from him again. So when I was a freshman in high school, I was big into Neopets and had a clique I ran with on the boards, and we chatted off-site as well. Two of those people were Shelby and Adam, same age as myself more or less, and dating. Adam had a sister, Kelsey I think, who was also in the clique. Well, it came to pass, as internet relationships do, that Shelby and Adam broke up, and Adam and I started talking/dating. Shelby gave us her blessing. We shared pics. He was typical emo-looking kid which 14-year-old me loved. We talked on the phone only once or twice. I was very shy about it, so didn't mind the lack of voice communication. At one point he sent me a YouTube video of him and his friends. There wasn't much talking and it was all pretty muffled, and it sounded like they were all speaking German. Adam and I broke up, and it was after that the big reveal came. There was no Adam. Kelsey had made him up and been posing as him all along. I asked Shelby about it, and apparently she had found out when they had broken up too, but Kelsey had made her promise not to tell. Gee, thanks. TLDR, Neopets is for good clean fun, not dating. I was talking to a girl I met on Tinder, and while I have on my profile that I'm not interested in being anyone's third, she kept talking about the guy she was currently seeing and how hot he was, and didn't I want to duck him with her? I eventually found her Facebook, and his was a real Facebook while hers consisted of two really fake-looking photos and no actual information. So it became apparent at that point it was the guy just trying to get bi girls to sext with him. That's actually reality ducking. Clever. Duck. Not me, but my father-in-law. He lost his wife 7 years ago, and after a while was tired of having an empty house and no one to talk to. He tried online dating but went to a free site and got hooked. A lady who claims she lived in Chicago started chatting him up. She was an international traveler for business. She had pics and seemed friendly. They chatted for a few weeks and then made plans to meet after she came back from business. He kept telling us some of the details about this amazing lady he met, but we didn't want to be too invasive, so didn't ask a lot of questions. Luckily for him, her trip back was a holiday Thanksgiving weekend and we all happened to be at his house. She was supposed to fly in on Saturday and he kept going to his room in private to chat with her about the details of her trip. On Friday, he came down all sad and said she sent him a heartbreaking message. Her plane got stuck somewhere in Europe due to weather, forget where, and while she was waiting her purse was stolen. She had no phone, no credit cards, no ID, no tickets, etc. She needed him to send money so she could get back home, and she was scared and alone in a country she had never visited. If we hadn't been there and he told me some of the details, which of course set off my bullshit alarms, he would have sent her a couple of grand to get back home. I explained to him the concept of catfishing and he didn't believe me at first. I had him ask her for some more details. How is she reaching him with no phone? She claimed she was borrowing laptops at the airport. How come she never talked on the phone? She said she gets very shy on the phone and prefers using the dating site to chat. What is the flight hash so we can track it coming to the USA? She provided one, but it was bunk and not stuck due to weather. When we called her out on it, she tried the emotional tactic and said she was shaking in sadness and betrayal that he couldn't trust her after she gave him her heart. She kept going for emotional responses but stopped responding with any attempts to get actual proof from her. We stopped responding, and a day or two later she messaged him one last try and claimed a friend paid for a new ticket for her, but she still needed money, a lesser amount, to pay some sort of fine or she would be stuck there and could maybe go to jail. He wouldn't want her to have to go to jail, would he? Yeah, it sucked that it happened cause he's a super trusting guy. Even a few weeks later he wasn't for certain that she wasn't real despite the whole family telling him it was a scam. I even kind of think he sent her the money in the first part for the original ticket and the family didn't get involved until the stolen purse part of the scam. Of course she was most likely he using stolen pics online. I did an image search on one of the photos but nothing came up. Moral of the story time: if you have anyone over 50 in your life, make sure you explain to them about different types of internet scams. Especially if they are into shopping, dating, meeting friends, etc. It's a whole different world than what they grew up with, and the scammers are getting very good at it. I know a few elderly that have been scammed over the phone, but the internet brings a whole new level of scamming. About 10 years ago I started chatting with a guy in one of the Yahoo chat rooms. We had only been chatting for a few weeks when suddenly he disappeared offline for about 2 weeks. I was so worried, but then his sister contacted me and told me he'd been in a terrible motorcycle accident. He was in ICU, but she kept in touch with me to let me know how he was. After about a month, he got back online and we talked every day. We traded pics and eventually I got on webcam to say hi. He couldn't do the same because of some issues with his computer. We talked like this for nearly 3 years. It was around this time that I realized his sister was actually him. It didn't matter though. I was besotted with him, and I mean totally head over heels. Then one day he just disappeared. His profile was deleted, all his accounts were gone, and I have not heard a single word from him since. I still have absolutely no idea who he or she really was, and it messed up for a long time. I still think about it times. I would do anything to know the truth. It was when I was a teenager, not too long after the birth of ICQ. I had met this one person in a chat room, and things started to get more and more personal. Not too long later, they eventually broke down and admitted that they had been lying, and that they weren't a young hot girl but instead a man. The guy seemed really remorseful, and I couldn't bring myself to tell him that I actually wasn't a young hot lesbian either. I don't think anybody was ever what they said they were in those old school chat rooms. This might be a little late, but I actually unintentionally catfished someone. I was playing League of Legends and this guy added me after we played a game. His English was broken, but I didn't think much of it and we started to duo together. We did really well, but strangely he kept referring to me as a she. Again, didn't think twice about it and I just kept playing with him, but eventually he started to get real creepy and told me all these things about him. We found out that there was a significant time difference between us, but he would log on at the most ridiculous times for him JSUT to play with him and started to become a white knight. Whenever anyone would trash talk me, pretty normal, he would vehemently defend me and start fights with other team members, opposing players, and whatever. Shortly after that, he would start saying good night BB, which I thought was bye bye. So I would say haha good night BB back to him. Then he'd send me hearts like 3 and I thought we were guys being guys, so I would jokingly message that heart back to him. Eventually he started calling me his GF when he was defending me and I realized he full on thought I was a female the entire time. I messaged him after that game and was like, dude, I'm a guy, and he went on a rampage. He started cussing me out, and by the end of it, the reason why he thought I was a female was because of my username and because I used proper grammar and spelling. Just because I didn't use proper grammar here does not mean I suck at it. He claimed to be a US Marine, yet had an extravagant amount of free time to play Morpgs. Someone here on Reddit offered to run his name through the USMC database, and he didn't exist. Well, someone by his name did, but they had been discharged in 1958 or something, whereas this guy claimed to be 21. Good old stolen valor. I was probably 19. Very bad with women, very into role-playing on things called MUXs, think a roleplay-centric, all-text MMO. Met a girl on one of the MUXs, she was a senior in high school. I had just graduated, and we started hanging out online, which went to let's call and talk about the plots we're running / in which became I love you in a couple of weeks. There was a lot of fun. I scanned my junk, She scanned hers, we sent it to each other. We'd sit on the phone and laugh about stuff until like 3 a.m., or whenever her dad would come in and tell her to hang up. She's the first girl I ever had phone sex with. I still get a weird tingle when I see girls in videos using the bathtub to masturbate. This is all before camera phones, so all I had to go on was my imagination. Well, calls start slowing down. Then the letters stopped getting responded to. Eventually she just stopped talking to me altogether. About then I started putting the pieces together. How her pictures were always like, some girl in a crowd. Or some girl's school photos. Or how all my mail came back returned to sender until she gave me a new, completely different address. The signs were all there, I was just willfully ignoring them. I think there probably was some feelings on her end. My theory is that she was a lot younger than she was claiming, and I was talking a lot of nonsense about her moving to my state so we could be together. I think she got scared, or her parents found out she was talking to an older man, and she cut contact. The romance seemed two-directional. I liked making her laugh and making silly plans with her. She seemed to genuinely enjoy my humor and company, but, again, she was telling me she was 17, and how hard is it to not laugh at 17 sometimes. So, if your name is Rashni, or if you pretended to be a girl named Rashni in like 2000, no hard feelings. Thanks for laying the groundwork and making my current relationship, which has a temporary long-distance aspect, a lot easier. And whenever I think about our imaginary son, Spaghetti Bucket, I smile and wish you well. Edit: no, that isn't Rashni. Edit 2, may have been contacted by Rashni, not the poster who provided a link to the logs. Am awaiting confirmation. Edit 3, nope. Sorry guys, no internet miracle for you today. I had a friend back in high school who told us this story a week after it happened at a graduation party. So he had been chatting with this girl from Florida for 3 years. Decides to finally go and visit her for a week after our high school graduation. So he takes a plane down and she was going to pick him up at the airport. He arrives and instead is greeted by her mother who says her daughter is waiting for him back at the house. So he gets his bags and heads for the car with her. Notices a guy sitting in the back seat around his age. Funny he didn't remember anything about her having a brother. He starts getting a little weirded out at this point. They finally arrive at the house. No girl in sight. He gets angry and has the mother spill the beans. Turns out this lady was using her niece's pictures to talk with him. How he didn't realize sooner I don't know. Maybe they never talked on the phone or maybe her voice sounded young. Anyways, he immediately left this lady and her son and spent the night at a hotel and had his parents pay for a plane ticket back home the next day. Started talking to a girl from Reddit. Great sob story about parents abusing her as a child, about how her dad is still living with her despite court cases. If only she had something to take her mind off of it. She starts sexting. Some red flags, but people on the internet are ducking weird at the best of times, so I'm down with that, given she's 19, or says she is. But hey, I'm paranoid and check that these people are who and what they say they are as far as possible. Ask for a verification picture. Person disappears. Person starts posting on a new account on Reddit. I notice and pull a suspicious face. Similar looking photos, similar usernames for chat programs. Decide that I'd best verify manually by digging around. Google tells me that the girl exists. Google also tells me girl lives with her grandparents, 300 miles from where she said she did. A few databases of pedos and lawsuits eventually turns up her dad, who is registered as a sex offender where the girl said she was living. He got out of jail 6 months ago. Every social media account the girl has was created 3 to 6 months ago. All of them use the same set of photos that I eventually find EXIF data for saying they're from a few years ago, and more amusingly yet, the social media account is sock puppeting on a few websites. Google gives me email address of local police station. I talked to this guy, Sean, for months, probably close to a year. Then puff, gone. It sucked but oh well. 6 months later start talking to another guy with the same unusual middle name. He turns out to be Sean's ex-boyfriend and about 80% of the stuff I knew about Sean was actually about him. He broke up with Sean 6 months before and took his phone back and that's why he disappeared. TLDR met the real-life inspiration for the persona I was catfished with. Well, I catfished a girl once. Does that count? It was probably the most evil thing I've ever done. I was young at the time and extremely lonely, and a broke college student. She was sweet and loving and made me feel like my life was worth living. We met in an Napster chat room. Yeah, you read that right. We just started chatting and immediately hit it off. At the time, I'd never even used AIM or ICQ, or any IM program. I made an account just so I could keep chatting with her. She filled a massive hole in my life and made me feel that at least somebody cared. But to keep her interest, I had to invent this wealthy, interesting persona who lived in Manhattan, NYC. Over time, the lies just kept getting ever more elaborate and absurd. This went on for months. I still feel a huge amount of remorse about the whole episode to this day. Eventually I felt compelled to tell her the truth. By that point, she had already figured it out on her own and was just waiting for me to fess up. Except, at the time, I didn't know it. We used to chat in the mornings, before either of us had to go off to our respective days. One morning in, I want to say November/December 2001, I finally told her the truth about me, in complete detail. I even got a cam so she could see me, and hear me talk IRL, so she'd be able to see and hear and verify everything and know that I didn't want to lie to her anymore about anything. I think she realized how sorry I was and that I never meant to hurt her. She forgave me, almost immediately. Although, I know I still hurt her. We became even closer friends after I told her the truth and stayed that way for years. We started regularly chatting on Cam. I even visited her, in December 2002. Eventually we lost contact. Years later, we reconnected on Facebook. And then lost contact again, when I finally ditched Facebook. Wherever you are, CSS, I hope you're happy and well. Thanks for listening to another episode of RedditX. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.